Hi everybody, this is Cheryl Richardson, and I'm here this week for our regular weekly Facebook Live session, and I'm going to wait just a couple of minutes as you all start joining. Glad to have you here. And I know some of you are going to tune in later and you'll watch the replay, so let me just say right up front, thank you for the hearts. It's nice to see you all. Hi Becky. And Carol, welcome. Yes, Pupan, I'm going to give you an update. He is doing better. He's not fully recovered yet, but he is slowly coming around. We don't know what happened. He must have gotten into something, and we had blood work done, and he had very elevated liver enzymes. So it appeared like he might have gotten into something. Pupan is my cat, by the way, for those of you who are new and just joining me for the first time or maybe aren't familiar with me. Pupan is a cat that I write about a lot and I blog about and post pictures of him. He's been with us for 10.5 years, and last week he wasn't feeling well and he hadn't seen a vet in a very long time because he's an indoor cat and he's in great shape. And so we had a wonderful vet come to the home. And I highly recommend that if you can do it. It's so much better. Pupan has a little bit of feral cat in him, so he gets really scared and skittish going to vets. It's incredibly stressful for him. So anyway, so he's on some medicine to support his liver and some Chinese herbs, thanks to a really wonderful friend of mine who's also a vet. Jeff Nickel is a wonderful vet who was so helpful with Poopy, and also Dennis Thomas, who's a great alternative vet who does both traditional and alternative medicine, and he consults by phone too, and he's been incredibly helpful. So we've got him on some Chinese herbs and some medicine to sort of restore the health of his liver, and he's slowly coming around. He's eating and using the litter box normally, so that's all good signs. He's just not his typical energetic, aggressive self yet, but thank you all so much for your beautiful, kind words, for comments on my blog on Sunday about him and just about the anniversary of my dad's death. I appreciated it so much. And, I believe very much in the power of prayer. And so your prayers for our little guy really, really matter to us. And I appreciate it. I really do. So let me just say hi, Angela and Shelley and Jen from Australia and Lori and Alice. Thank you, Alice. Hi, Heather and Crassy from Seattle, and Kath and Julie from upstate New York, where it's cold. Yes, it is cold here as well in Massachusetts. It's really cold. Well, it feels really cold. It's getting down into the 30s, and we've been lucky because it's been a beautiful fall, and it's been kind of a warm fall, so it's definitely winter's coming. Winter's coming. Hi, Abby from New Zealand, and thank you, Lori. Yes, I know we all love Pupan, don't we? And hi, Ryan and Krista. Thank you both for being here, and Heather. So tonight, what I want to do is I'm going to read another excerpt from my new book that's coming out. It's called Waking Up in Winter, and it'll be out in December, in winter, just before winter, December 19th. And I thought I would read an excerpt from the book. I'm going to read you an excerpt that, so this book, let me just say, is a memoir in journal form. So it's different than, I've written 6 self-help books about work-life balance and self-care and developing confidence and courage and character and managing our outer lives and standing up for ourselves and also honoring our spiritual well-being. And yeah, Julie, the release date is on your 55th birthday. Well, this will be a good birthday gift for you because the book was inspired by 2 things. Turning 50, it inspired me to publish this journal because I knew that I wanted to do something different this time. Instead of writing another self-help book, I actually wanted to give you all an experience, a first-hand kind of view into what it means to live a conscious life that's committed to growth and healing. And so that's what I've done. And the journal was partially partially inspired, my decision to choose this period, because I've been journaling for a long time, was inspired by turning 50 and also by the death of a very dear friend of mine, Debbie Ford. Some of you know her. And the death of Debbie was really a big thing for me. And tonight I'm actually going to read you the entry about the last time that I saw Debbie. I just felt, I felt inspired to do that because in some ways that experience provides such a powerful message for us all. So, yeah, Teresa says, love me some Debbie Ford. I do too. Before I do that, though, what I wanted to do is I'd like to just read you the description of the book from the press release, because it does a much better job of describing the book. It's in third person, so it's about me, but I just want you to hear the description that will be on the back jacket of the book, so that you have an idea of what it is, and then I'll read the excerpt and say a little bit about it. So again, the book is called Waking Up in Winter in Search of What Really Matters at Midlife. And the back jacket says, internationally recognized coach and New York Times bestselling author Cheryl Richardson has toured the world empowering others to make lasting change. But when Richardson's own life no longer worked as it once had, a persistent inner voice offered unmistakable guidance. It was time to reevaluate her life to uncover what really mattered. Waking Up in Winter is the candid and revelatory account of how at midlife, Richardson found renewed contentment and purpose through a heroic inward journey. The unfolding story, told through intimate journal entries, follows Richardson from the first gentle nudges of change to a thoughtfully reimagined life, a soulful spring awakening. With an experienced coach's intuition and an artist's eye, Richardson examines everything, her marriage, her work, her friendships, and her priorities, gracefully shedding parts of herself that no longer serve along the way. In the end, she not only discovers what really matters at midlife, she invites readers to join her in their own inquiry process by providing thought-provoking questions designed to usher them through their own season of transformation. Offering up Richardson's most powerful teaching tool yet, her own life, Waking Up in Winter takes readers on a brave spiritual adventure that shows us all how to live a more authentic and meaningful life. So that's the back jacket. And I have my friend Bruce Cole to thank for that beautiful writing. He read the book, and we had the back jacket copy already done. And when he read the book, he said to me, you know, the back copy doesn't do the book justice. And he's a beautiful writer. And he said, do you mind if I take a stab at it? And I said, no, I would love you to. And turned out we all loved it. I did, my publisher did, and it really captured what was true. So anyway, you know, when you keep a journal, as I have for 40 years, one of the real benefits of keeping a journal is you can go back and you can go back in time and read about what was going on for you during a certain period of life, and you can see through the lens of hindsight things that you couldn't see while you were going through it. When I decided to publish this journal, when I took this particular period of my life that felt really, it felt really significant, and it felt like a threshold. Felt like that I was entering a new phase of my life, and we all have many phases that we go through, and this felt like a significant phase. When I went back and I looked at it, I realized something. I realized a lot of things that I didn't know at the time I was keeping the journal, but one of the things I really got was how powerful an impact Debbie Ford's death had on my life. I tried really hard in this entry. I tried when I went back to edit this entry for clarity. I tried so hard to capture something that's hard to put into words, and it's what happens when you have somebody close to you that has lived a very similar life, or appears to be, you know, a peer who is in the same lane, you know, that you just feel is in the same lane, And suddenly here you are at their deathbed having the most authentic and honest conversation you can ever have with somebody. And not only are you saying goodbye to your friend and seeing the extraordinary beauty of that moment, because I can tell you, as someone who has been at the bedside of people when they've passed on, it is an extraordinary gift. We just don't talk about death, and we don't experience death as much as we need to, anywhere near what we need to in this world. It is a privilege to be with someone at the end of their life, and to have such an honest conversation with Debbie was such a gift. And when I went back, reading through this journal, I realized, after time had passed, what an impact that day had on me, and what an impact her life had on me. So anyway, I'm going to read you the entry. Let's see, can I read it without my glasses now? I'm going to read you the entry. And this entry was on November 6th. Debbie died early in 2013, but this was several months later. For some reason, November 6th. For some reason, I've felt unusually sensitive today, as if my protective outer layer has suddenly become paper thin. Debbie has been on my mind again. Tonight, in the bath, I stared at the statue of a Balinese goddess that's sitting on the shelf next to the tub, a gift she gave me on the last day we were together. My mind wandered back to our visit, and I felt struck by a cannonball of grief. My connection with Debbie was unique. We spoke the same language, shared a profession as coaches, writers, and teachers, and we were both deeply committed to our own growth and to each other's. Debbie and I could talk shop, counsel each other, and giggle together about the peaks and pitfalls of living on the road in airplanes and hotels. She understood my world as no one could. I had expected to enjoy our friendship for a lifetime, but it culminated in our painful goodbye in February of 2013. I'll be forever grateful for the major snowstorm that provided me the chance to see Debbie one last time before she died. I was finishing up a retreat I'd been leading in Tucson, Arizona, when we heard that airports in the Northeast Corridor were closing due to snow. According to the news, it could be days before they opened, and my travel agent was already looking for future flights and alternative routes home. At lunch, a friend mentioned that she was driving 6 hours through the desert to San Diego, where Debbie lived. Walking down the path to my room afterward, something told me to go back to the dining room, find my friend, and ask if there was space in her car. Of course, Christina said, we'd love for you to join us. Back at my room, I sent up a silent prayer of thanks and packed my bags. When I got to Debbie's building, the elevator ride to her apartment felt endless. I had called ahead to say that I was coming, and I was told that death was close. I wasn't sure I was ready for the emotional impact of seeing its advance firsthand. When I entered Debbie's room and carefully sat down next to her in the bed, my eyes were drawn to the pink nail polish on her fingers, its brightness such a stark contrast to the translucent skin. We smiled at each other as I pulled her hands into mine. I noticed she wore the same faded red string around her wrist that I wore, part of a blessing ritual we shared just a few months earlier after Debbie returned home from Israel. As she closed her eyes to rest for a while, I slipped my phone out of my pocket and snapped a picture of our hands clasped together. Now and then, Debbie would open her eyes and speak, her faint voice straining against the effort. "Cheryl," she whispered, "I love you. So please, please, don't waste time doing things that you don't really want to do. Right now, it doesn't matter how many best-selling books I've written or how many fans I have on Facebook. All I care about is leaving my son and the people I love behind and what will happen after I die." She smiled weakly, but her gaze was fierce. My eyes filled with tears. I felt wobbly, barely able to keep it together. "And for God's sake," she said, "don't do anything that bores you." Such a strange thing to say, and yet so incredibly relevant to me at that time. Her words struck me with particular force. Because we led such similar lives, It felt like Debbie was giving me my own deathbed perspective, and the timing couldn't have been better. Here I was beginning to question everything, craving more depth in my work and in my relationships, feeling a growing need for new creative expression, and Debbie was pushing me to take these desires seriously. I sat holding her hands for more than an hour as she slept, her breathing labored and shallow. I tried to memorize the shape of her mouth, the arch of her beautiful brows, the lines of her delicate, graceful hands. When it came time to leave, I gently kissed her forehead and promised to stay in touch via her assistant, Julie, a benevolent soul who had been by her side nonstop for days. As I crawled into the back seat of the car that picked me up, I stared out the window, feeling gutted and disturbed. How do I live the same life after this? That day affected me in ways I still don't fully understand. As painful as it is to lose someone we love, there's also a gift to be had. Death opens a window, and for a brief time our priorities come into view. We know who and what matters most, and we're brave enough to ignore the rest. I keep revisiting my last conversation with Debbie because it's my way of keeping that window open. I don't want to forget my priorities. I want my life to be a more authentic expression of who I am now. I want to challenge the rules and roles that no longer feel right or true. I want to be able to say yes to the wise part of me that keeps asking, if this were your last day on earth, would you be happy with how you spent it? Debbie offered me a sobering dose of reality. In the end, there are no marching bands, singing choirs, or mobs of angels celebrating the lives that have been touched by our work. None of that matters. What does matter is love and truth and how well we've followed the dictates of the soul. You know, it's said that the consciousness that a writer writes with is the consciousness that gets transmitted to the reader. And one of the most challenging things about publishing a journal was to go back and edit it, you know, to clean up the grammar and the punctuation and to make sure that there was added context if something didn't make sense, particularly in the beginning. One of the real challenges is you have to keep reliving your life, that period of your life, over and over and over. Now, the gift of that, and this is why journaling can be so incredibly helpful for us all, the gift of that is you get to go back and revisit your experiences, culling the wisdom and the healing that was evident and available to us as we went through it. It also certainly has made me really appreciate what happens when you learn to listen to your life. You know, your life right now is speaking to you. Not your head, not your mind, the fearful mind, which is usually revisiting the past or worrying about what's going to happen in the future. But life in this moment, this precious moment that's just here for you, and it's all you have, it's all we have is right now, you and I together. This moment is giving us an opportunity, giving us as the soul that we are, an opportunity to fully experience ourselves and to experience this wondrous place we live. As crazy and screwed up as it seems, it is a miracle that we're all here. It's a miracle that I'm communicating with many of you from all over the world through this little tiny box called my phone. It's a miracle. And your life is always speaking to you. And oftentimes what that life is saying is slow down, get quiet, be present, shut this off, do something to quiet the crazy voice in your head that's distracting you from this precious moment, experiencing this moment. That's where really true peace and serenity lies, in our ability to be in charge of this busy mind that need not run the show, really can't run the show effectively. So going back and revisiting my life for that period, while difficult at times, also really helped me to appreciate what really matters. And I'm grateful for the gift of that relationship, and let me just say that some of you I know right now have people in your life that you love that aren't well, that may be dying, and or maybe you're turning a significant age and you're beginning to look at your own mortality. Look at it. Look it in the eye. Face the reality that every day is precious and that you're far better off. It's honoring to you, you as the soul, and to those in your life who you love. It's honoring to really live your life as if this were your last day. Asking yourself, as I did in that entry, as I said in that entry, I want to keep saying, if this were my last day, would I be happy with how I spent it? That's what I hope. I hope that you all take from this. So much of what we worry about is completely unnecessary. Last week when my little cat was sick, and I love my little boy, he's been with us a long time and he's like a little child to us. He's a little companion. I was so acutely aware of how many things didn't matter that were so important just the day before. I was just so tuned into the moment. That's one of the things that death does, is it really facing our mortality helps us to become crystal clear right here in this moment. And I was really aware of that. And I just kept saying to myself, Cheryl, pay attention to what really matters. I say this all the time. Some of you have heard me say it. If you're waiting for diagnosis and you've got that horrible pit in your stomach because you don't know what's going to happen, that's the gift of that moment, is to really talk about, to get connected to your priorities, the things that really matter to you. That's what something like waiting for a diagnosis or being with someone that's passing away or in the process of dying. The gift of that is our priorities become crystal clear, and the things that really aren't that important also become crystal clear. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that excerpt. I'm going to actually go spend some time with my little guy who's been hiding out most of the day. I like to go. One of the prescriptions from Dennis Thomas was to go and just sit with him quietly and really feel the love and the deep gratefulness that I have for sharing my life with this little being. And I do 2 visualizations, and you can do this with anybody that you want to support. You want to find a visualization that works for you. But I imagine a giant red beating heart around myself and Poupon, and I imagine it beating, nourishing, bright red, healthy blood, cleansing his liver, healing his body, connecting the two of us. And then I also imagine the image of the Miraculous Mary statue. Some of you may have seen it, and I think I've posted it on Facebook before. The image of Mother Mary with her arms down by her side, her palms outstretched, often with rays of light coming out through her fingers. That's the Miraculous Mary statue. I picture Poupon at Mary's feet. And I imagine her taking good care of him and protecting him and keeping her, especially when I get scared and my mind starts doing crazy things. I just automatically put him in her hands because she knows what she's doing. And I have a very special connection with her. So anyway, thank you all. Thank you for your wonderful feedback. You can pre-order the book. If you go to, I'll put the link in this post. If you go to CherylRichardson.com, you'll see a way to connect to a page where you can order the book wherever you feel most comfortable ordering it from. It will be released on December 19th. And if you belong to a book group and you decide to read this book with a book group, like say, for example, let's say that you decide to buy several copies for friends of yours that you may be in a book group with, please keep the receipt. Keep a copy of the receipt, because as we get closer to the release date, I'm actually going to invite people to send a copy of their receipt to an email address, and I'm going to choose a group of book clubs to visit on Facebook Live. So if you have a book club or you want to start a book club, if you want to buy some friends extra copies of the book for Christmas and read it together, you'll see at the end of the book is a series of very kind of thought-provoking questions that you can use in a group. You can also use it in a journal or with one friend or a couple of friends. But if you are going to read it with a group, please keep the copy of the receipt, because anybody who's purchasing, I would say like 5 copies or more, I'll have you send an email with a picture of the receipt to a specific email. I'll set that up just before the release. And then if all of you can just set up a private Facebook page, I'll come and visit, and we'll spend an hour together talking about the book and talking about midlife, talking about whatever you want to talk about. It'll just be our private little group. And this way I can visit with those of you all over the world. I know the book's going to be released in the UK, I think in January. So it doesn't matter. I can do it next year once you get the book. It's totally fine. So anyway, I appreciate you. I appreciate the pre-orders too, because in doing that, it really helps to let the bookstores know that there's an interest so that they'll carry the book. That's one of the reasons why you always see people trying to, encourage people to pre-order the book. It's because nowadays bookstores don't carry books unless there's a demand. And one of the ways they determine the demand is through pre-orders from anywhere. So I really appreciate you doing that. And I'll look forward to talking with you next week. We'll do a live coaching session next week where I'll take your calls. Hi, Mom. My mom's here. Mamacita. Te amo. I love you, Mom, too. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here with me. I really appreciate it, and I'll go back and read all your comments, and I'll be sure to post a link to the book on this post when I'm done here. Okay? All right, everybody. Lots of love. Take good care. Yes, and keep those prayers for Poopy coming. I really appreciate them a lot. I do. We both do. And Michael does, too. Michael really appreciates it as well. All right, everybody. Lots of love.